I'm Velaire Elliott. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is September 29th, 2009. My home group is the Willow Springs group. We meet tonight at 8 o'clock for a speaker meeting. We meet on Sunday nights at 6 o'clock for a beginner meeting and at 7:15 for a big book study. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. I sponsor other women, and I think that's all my housekeeping. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. Steve had some nice things to say about me. They were not true about 4 years ago. I could not always hold a job. Could not always show up to work. But I grew up in Fuquay, Verena. I grew up to an amazing family. Loving parents. I had an older sister. I have a younger sister. Your stereotypical middle child. And Fuquay was really small when I grew up. My great-grandfather started the first pharmacy in Fuquay. My grandparents ran it. Everybody knew me in town. My dad was a soda jerk all throughout high school. And so when my parents moved back to Fuquay, I was 2 years old. I grew up in the house my great-grandparents built. It was really just that small town feel. We went to church every Sunday, and I hated being forced to get up to go to church every Sunday. I remember laying in bed thinking, maybe they'll just forget that I'm here. Come to think of it, that would have been terrible parenting, and that was not them. I think one thing for me that stands out from my childhood, when I was 5 years old, I pulled vertebrae out of place in my neck. And I was in the hospital for 2 weeks on and off, and then I was in traction at home for another month. And what's important about that is that I learned how to manipulate, because nobody tells the 5-year-old laying in a hospital bed that she cannot have what she wants. And I got everything I wanted. It was great. They waited on me hand and foot. To say what kind of dad my dad is, he sells durable medical equipment. And the doctors originally wanted to put a halo in my head. And my dad said, "You are not drilling holes in my daughter's head. I'll buy the equipment, I'll take it home, I'll set it up, and I'll watch out for her." So that was the kind of home I grew up in. Very supportive. I was extremely rebellious. I decided I'd take up smoking at about 10 years old. Do believe I was actually addicted to smoking by 12. And I spent 3 years in a row on my birthday grounded, because my parents would catch me. I'd open up my bedroom window and just hang halfway out and smoke cigarettes. And they'd come up into my room and they'd say, "Velaire, it smells like smoke." I don't know what y'all are talking about. I was a chronic liar from the get-go. So, I figured if you just deny it, never admit to anything, they had no proof. That was smoking was my first attempt at rebellion. My parents were smokers. They told me not to do it. And as usual, if you told me not to do something, you drew a line in the sand, and I stepped 10 feet on the other side, and I, turned around and stuck my tongue out at you. I had my first drink when I was 11 years old. I was by myself. I had my first drink like I had my last drink. Was by myself. My parents were gone for the day, and I'd heard a friend say that, his older brother had gotten drunk and he thought it was cool, and I knew how to make a screwdriver. Never really could drink screwdrivers after that day because I got sick. It was the day before Easter, and my parents made me pick out my Easter outfit, which consisted of walking up and down the stairs trying on dresses, and that just sloshed stuff up too much. So I got to the top of the stairs the third time, and I was sick, but I got out of going to church, so that was a plus. And I always knew I wanted to drink. I always knew I wanted to do other substances. That was my thing. And I don't know, I mean, I knew from a young age, I used to see the commercials that said, no one ever says I want to be a junkie when I grew up. I did not know what a junkie was, but I thought, why not? So, I didn't really drink again until high school. And probably about junior year in high school was when I started, kind of always hung out with the party crowd, but this was when I really got in with the party crowd, and they were cool, and you know, my parents were, I thought they were strict. They were really just good parents. But they gave me a curfew of like 11:30, and that was too early for me to be home. So I learned I could stay the night with a friend and stay out all night, and that's what we would do. We'd go to people's houses. We always hung out with people that were older than us. There was always alcohol. I never had a problem getting it. I had friends' parents in high school that we just put in our order, and when they went to the liquor store on Friday afternoon, they got what they wanted and they got what we wanted. And I don't know what they thought we were doing, because these parents never liked for us to hang out at their house and drink. They always wanted us to go somewhere else. And I think that's where I got my penchant for drinking and driving. So, you know, senior year of college, I'd gone with a girlfriend for a weekend down to Charleston, South Carolina, and during that weekend, I received my first of 3 DUIs. We were hanging out, we were drinking, we were having a good time. She started feeling bad. I said, let's leave. I'll drive somewhere. At 3 blocks up the road, I left going the right way on a one-way street, and it turned into a two-way street. And I said, I don't know where I'm going. I don't think I need to be driving. Let's turn around. I never turned off that street, so I was just going to go back the way I came. It turned back into a one-way street, and I was going the wrong way. I had a head-on collision. I totaled her car. I could not say my ABCs. I got the T of what? I think I said TGIF, and I said, screw it. So, anyways, I learned the penny under your tongue does not work. I went to jail. And the people begged me, said, please call your parents. I was only 17 years old, and I said, I don't think you understand. I don't have a family anymore. I'll be here until my court date. Because I'd had another run-in with the law for an outside substance when I was 16. And my dad made it very clear that had my mother not answered the phone, he would not have come to the police station to pick me up. So I knew at 17, being out of state, he was not coming to the police station to pick me up. I sobered up at 8 o'clock the next morning, and I asked for a phone call. And my parents wired that money Western Union. I got out of jail. I had to go stay with my friend at her grandmother's house until her parents could pick us up and take us home. And seeing as how I'd wrecked their daughter's car, that was miserable 5.5-hour car ride home. So, I swore off drinking. I was done. Just got me in trouble. I don't need to hang out with the party crowd anymore. And that lasted a month. I was having too much fun. I needed to hang out with my friends. That's how I felt cool. And I didn't, when I was drinking, I didn't care. I was a blackout drunk, so I didn't know half the time what I did. Nor did I ever, I just always woke up the next morning and somebody filled me in. So I graduated from high school early. I did a semester at Wake Tech, doing some college prep courses, and I went off to East Carolina University. I had a lot of fun. I somehow managed to stay on the honor roll or the dean's list every single semester that I was in college, and graduated with honors. And That is a miracle, especially the last 2 years of my drinking. And I'd gotten a boyfriend about a month before I went off to college. We decided we would just date until I went off to college, and that lasted 5.5 years. So, at 2.5 years down at ECU, I knew I wanted to go to law school, and I knew that I wasn't happy there, and if I went to a more competitive university, I had a better chance of getting into law school. I'm not an attorney today. The best thing God ever did for me was 5 denial letters from law school. But so I transferred to NC State. I waited tables at my uncle's restaurant while I went to school. I got an apartment with Raleigh, in Raleigh with a girl who really liked to party. And I found a law internship. There was an attorney that worked literally directly across the street from my apartment from her home, and she liked to drink just like I did. So I showed up to do my law internship every afternoon, and we went to the store and bought wine and proceeded to drink. We would debate the politics of the day. Sometimes we might have to go down to the courthouse and file some papers. But it just so worked out when we moved in, her and her husband walked across the street, introduced themselves to me and my roommate, had never introduced themselves to any other neighbors. I loved the house she lived in, and I said, "You've got to give me a tour." We started talking, boom, law internship with a fellow alcoholic. And today she's in the program, so she figured it out too. So I kind of cruised through college. My senior year, I did my law internship, and I worked part-time at my parents' company. Things were kind of starting, I guess they hadn't completely fallen apart yet, but things were not looking too good. I got my second DUI about a month and a half before I graduated from college. I fractured my C7 vertebrae in my neck. So the last month and a half of college, my parents had to drive me to and from school because I was in a neck brace. And the reason I probably did not get into law school is don't get arrested right before you apply. They do not smile upon that. They expect you to uphold the law, not break it. So I totaled, every time I got a DUI, I wrecked a car. If I was going to go out, I was going out in flames. And I called my parents. I was in the hospital, and I begged them, I can't go back to jail. I have money in savings. If you'll just bail me out, I'll pay you back. And I guess the cops really just got tired of waiting around at the ER, so they left. I checked myself out at 4 in the morning because I had no idea that they had left, but I didn't see any police officers around, and I thought, this is my chance to not go to jail. So I unhooked everything and left, and they called me back the next day and said, "We're sorry you couldn't finish your stay, but we got your x-ray results, and you should come back." So I had 2 visits to the hospital that weekend, and did graduate from college. I graduated with honors, and then I just kind of flitted around because, why get a job? I might be going to law school. So I taught swim lessons. I lifeguarded on and off throughout high school and college, so I taught swim lessons. I worked for my parents part-time, and I got really good at drinking. So good, I moved in with them after college, and after about a month, they asked me, did I want to move in with my boyfriend, which, small town, that was unheard of. But apparently that was a better alternative to being under their roof. My younger sister is 6 years younger than me. They had to get her through high school, and she was just, having me there was not a good thing. So I moved back to Raleigh, and, at that point in time, I was getting blackout drunk most every night. I had started at some point in time over this year drinking some before I got to work. I remember sitting in court waiting for this DUI hearing and leaving the courthouse and having to sit in front of the liquor store until noon when it opened. And I had stuff to do that afternoon. You know, I showed up to babysit my manager's child, wasted. This little girl was had a disability, cerebral palsy. She was nonverbal. She's safe. Everything's fine today, but, you know, God forbid something happen. And, you know, the DUI, showing up to babysit her, my parents suggested that I take a week off from work, and said okay. So I sat around and drank all week, and, you know, they didn't really appreciate that, but I showed up to a job. And so sometime in the fall, they went out of town, and I had this brilliant idea that I was going to get all the rugs in their house cleaned for my mom for Christmas. My dad had to pay for it, but I was going to facilitate this. So I had to work from home while the rug people came, and, you know, that was a great excuse for me to drink all day. So I sprained my ankle. So I fell doing something. I think trying to do laundry. I fell and I sprained my ankle. I passed out drunk that day. I woke up and went to the urgent care the next day and got a brace. And I called my parents. They were in Texas, and I said, I think I need to go to rehab. And they said, well, we think that's a great idea. So my aunt happens to be a drug and alcohol abuse counselor, so we called her and got some suggestions, and I did some work online. I wanted to go to Hawaii. They suggested that I stay in the state of North Carolina. So I have some entitlement issues that I'm working through. So I went to the Pavilion, North Carolina, in the mountains of North Carolina. It was not Hawaii, but it was by no means shabby. And, you know, I knew at this point in time that drinking had me beat. I was getting DUIs. I couldn't quit drinking and driving. Well, I couldn't quit drinking, and sometimes I had somewhere to be. So that created an issue. But there were these outside issues that I thought were okay. And I could not let them go. So I spent 7 weeks in rehab. And I got a great education on what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is. And, you know, what the 12 steps are, and the idea of sponsorship. All those things were taught to me. And when I left rehab, I managed to get 2.5, 3 months sober. But I just couldn't give up those outside issues. And so at about 4 months sober, I decided I would try an outside issue. Within 5 days, I was drunk. And what rehab taught me was that no matter what, I would always go back to what my poison was. And my poison was alcohol. And that started 6 months of living hell for me. And to kind of rewind, when I got out of rehab, I decided I didn't want to be with that boyfriend anymore. I told my parents they need help on first and last month's rent, and my dad suggested he would just help me buy a house. And I said, that's great. I said, but you know I might relapse. He said, that won't happen to you, Velaire. I said, you're right, Dad. So he put a down payment on a house. I showed up to his house drunk. It was not fun. So, you know, I moved into that house. I closed July 27th of 2009. And I was drinking every day. I was passing out drunk every night, praying that I had one drink left to get over the hangover in the morning. And I had this down to a science. If you took 2 Advil, a multivitamin, and chugged a glass of water before you went to bed at night, and you woke up and you had a drink, you could get to work. And that was my cure. So, I tried to keep that charade up, and on September 27th of 2009, I got charged with what I hoped to be my last DUI, a hit and run. I hit a ditch, and a good Samaritan decided that he would stop to see if I was okay. I knew that wasn't a good idea, and so I better get out of there. So we had a low and high speed chase in the town of Clayton. When he did testify on the witness stand about a year and a half later, I realized I did not recall that day as well as I thought I did. My car broke down in the middle of 40. I got it into a median. I called a tow truck driver. I threw the keys in it, and I called my dad and I said, "Come get me." And he just happened to be on 40, and I cut across all 6 lanes, 4 lanes, but both sides. He pulled over on the side of the road and picked me up, and he said, "Damn it, Velaire, you're drunk." And I said, "Yeah, but we better get home before the cops come." So we got back to my house. The cops pulled in shortly thereafter. They took me to jail. I'd placed a couple of strategic phone calls to my uncle, who was friends with an attorney who happened to work in the same law firm of the guy who got me out of DUI number 2. Because I never got a conviction. I never really had suspend my license for a month. I got bailed out of jail. My cars got replaced. I got chastised, and I went on my way. And I felt guilty for a while. So this attorney, my parents weren't going to come get me this time, but the attorney advised them that the Johnson County jailhouse was not a place for a nice girl like me, and they should probably come and pick me up. So they did, and we drove home. And all this, my DUI happened at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd woken up at 4 in the morning drinking. That Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story is me. I drank enough, I should have slept around the clock. And yet within a couple of hours, I was up searching for that next drink. So my parents picked me up from jail, and we're driving home, and I said, "Well, Dad, I guess you'll pick me up on your way to work in the morning." And they said, "No, Velaire, why don't you take tomorrow off?" And I said, "I've been here before. I've had week vacations." So I said, "Okay." They showed up to my house the next day, and about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I knew that the tide had turned. There was no more bailing Velaire out. I did not have a job, and it's tough when your own dad fires you. The biggest thing that I noticed, they have always been a team. My dad has always been the rock. My mom was more emotional. But what sat before me in my house was I saw my dad cry for the first time. And I saw the pain and the hurt in his eyes. And I saw how this team supported each other, because my mom stepped up and she was the rock. And when my parents said they were done, I knew they were done. And they had called, they knew one of the first graduates out of the healing place and asked that gentleman what to do. They'd seen a newspaper article about a church-based program, Celebrate Recovery, and they contacted that man. And they let me know 2 things. One, there was no more cushy rehab. If I wanted to, I could go to the Women's Healing Place, which is a homeless shelter with a program. 2, they had contacted the man who did Celebrate Recovery, and was I willing to have him come and speak to me? And I said, sure. So he came. He had 13 years clean, and he agreed to take me to my first AA meeting the following night. My parents left, and all I wanted to do was drink. I had no ID. The cops took it. I had no money, and, I didn't have enough pride to walk to my neighbors and say, "Will you go to the store for me?" Or yes, I had too much pride. That's probably the better way to put it. My ego was still, it saved me. The next morning I woke up, I got everything out of my house. That was September 29th of 2009, and I went to my first AA meeting, and I picked up my first white chip. 4 days later, I walked into the doors of the Willow Springs group, and I made that my home group, and I got my first sponsor. The interesting thing, the Willow Springs group, where they meet, is in the church where I went to preschool. So God was preparing a place for me, and I knew where to go, and I felt right at home. Walked in the doors, and I saw my high school art teacher. I always thought she was a little spacey, so it made sense that I saw her there. And throughout the couple of years that I've been there, I've seen various people that I knew that I went to high school with. I'm the only person that has managed to stick around, but at least within my home group and the circles that I run in. But when I got that first sponsor, I had no license, I had no car, because if I got a DUI, I wrecked a car. And that forced me to call a woman every single day to pick me up, because what my parents like to refer to as my grad school taught me what 90 meetings in 90 days were. That the women stick with the women. And, all the general guidelines that get us a good solid footing in this program. And so I called a woman most days to pick me up. I did not do 90 and 90 perfectly, but I was pretty darn close. Sometimes my parents would stop on their way home from work and pick me up and drop me off at a meeting in Fuquay. I kind of stumbled into the Willow Springs group because it was convenient. So, I started working the program. I started meeting with this woman once a week, and we'd work the steps. And I thought for so long, I'm just doing this to get a job back, to keep a roof over my head. And then I did my 4th step and my 5th step. And I knew that I wasn't doing it for anybody else. There is no way that I sat down and told that woman what I shared with her for anybody but me and my desire to stay sober. And, things got better, but things didn't get perfect. I applied for a job at the local bank in Fuquay where my family had been banking probably since the doors opened. And that criminal record of mine kept me from getting that job. And they called me. I was on my way to meet a friend to go see a movie, and I bawled my eyes out, and I thought I might as well just drink. But I remembered a home group member had said, every time I drink, it's screw you, you hurt me, I'll hurt myself. And that's what I heard. It was my criminal record that kept me from getting a job. I never got arrested when I was sober. So that was kind of my first difficult thing. And I went to a meeting that night because I knew that that's where I had to be. At about 8 months sober, I got a job where I am still employed today. I got that job completely on my own merits, and I have been able to move up within that company completely on my own merits. A little over a year ago, my own merits almost got me fired from that job as well. This was not for my usual antics, but I made a mistake. I was given just enough rope to hang myself, and I almost did. And what I learned when I was going through that was that somewhere after a year, I lost sight of this program. I was going to my home group, and that was all I was doing. And, I hadn't worked on my spiritual relationship the way that I needed to. I work in a high-growth company. We have quadrupled in size since I started there. And I knew I could move up quickly, and I was going to chase that dollar. And when that was almost snatched out from under me, I hit a bottom like I never knew, because I couldn't numb it with anything else. I just had to feel those feelings. And I called my sponsor, and I said, I don't know what to do, but if this is sobriety, this sucks. And I don't want to live this way. And I knew that drinking and drugs were not the solution. So we started working the steps again. Also at that point in time, I'd come to the conclusion that my home group met too often, and I should probably find a home group that only met one night a week. So I showed up to a business meeting with intentions of, I know what other home group I'm going to choose, and it's only on Tuesday nights. I get my full weekend. It's one night a week. I can do this. I'm going to change. Well, the alternate GSR position happened to be open, and I am alternate GSR for our home group today. So God decided that I needed more AA, not less, and He put a position open, and I was able to fill it. And service has given me a whole new level to this program. I was really good at isolating when I was drinking, and I didn't realize how much I'd done it when I was sober. At a year sober, I found my first boyfriend, and that was great. And when I decided I didn't want to be with him anymore, I just focused on my job. I didn't focus on having a life. I didn't focus on anything else. I had a goal, and I was going to go after it. And I was just miserable. I was mean. Nobody liked to be around me. I was grumpy all the time. Gosh, I'd have hated me back then. So I became alternate GSR, and then I met a girl who was involved with NICUPA, which is the North Carolina Conference of Young People in AA. And the Raleigh Cary area had won the bid. We have the conference October 3rd through 6th. If you'd like to register, please see me after the meeting. So it'll be at the North Raleigh Hilton. But she suggested that I go to a host committee meeting. And so I started going to the host committee meetings on a regular basis. And I'm now the literature and display person. And service work has made it easy for me to meet like-minded people, because I have a purpose when I show up. I don't often like social situations where, got to say, hey, got to stick my hand out, I got to try and do small talk, which is interesting because in my career I build relationships, and my job is to sell our company essentially. But, I'm good if I have a purpose. I can show up and I can do something. And so that gave me a way to be around like-minded individuals within my age group that were doing this program and doing it well, because I have found that the winners are in service work. Shortly after that, I had not one, but 3 women, all within about a period of 3 months, asked me to sponsor them. And, I was able to start giving back what had been given to me. And that's really an amazing journey. Compassion is not my strong suit, but I'm learning it every day because I want to give these women what was given to me. And I want to see them succeed, and I want to take them through the steps, because it has made such a difference in my life. And today I'm a completely different person than I was. I just came back from family vacation with my parents, and we all got along. They enjoyed me being there. I'm going to go back and finish, the weekend at the beach with them. And, they were actually sad to see me go, which neither one of us felt that way 4 years ago. And I just quit going to family vacations because I couldn't drink like I wanted to. I mean, we could all drink together, but they all stopped, and I just passed out. So that didn't work. But, today we get along. I got to be maid of honor at my sister's wedding. I got to help my little sister get a job where I work so that it will put her on the path to go back to grad school. I have a relationship with these people because I worked the 9th step. And it was past just making an apology. It's every single day they've gotten to see a different me. I showed up to my little sister's high school graduation drunk. I got to go to her college graduation stone cold sober. And celebrate her accomplishments that weekend. And it was an amazing time. I saw my way through almost losing my job and have been able to redeem myself because I put one foot in front of the other and I did the next right thing. And that's what this program showed me. And then I learned how to get outside of myself and be of service and help other people and give back to a program that has given so much to me. And that's made the difference in my life. I spent 420 this year, which is a big holiday for other purposes, running a 10-mile race. And I thought, this is really different than what I would have done in years past. And it was amazing. I got a personal best on my 10-mile race. And, that was exciting. And that is God doing for me what I never could have done for myself. And that's been the biggest thing. I didn't find my spiritual growth in church, but I found my spiritual growth, and I have a personal relationship, and I talk to God. Before I walked in here, I prayed. Before I left my house this morning, I prayed. When I got irritated with my coworkers today, I prayed. And truly developing that conscious contact, my thoughts are different, and the way I interact with other people are different today. And that's what this program gave me. So with that, I'm a little early, but when you gotta shut up, you gotta shut up. So thank you.